In the previous session, we had seen what is the vision statement, what is the mission statement. Now we move ahead with the objectives and goals. See, once the company has framed a mission and the vision statements, then with reference to achievement of these mission statements, the company undertakes the goals it wants to achieve in the future. So here, when we put, to be more precise, the mission statements into one level, a bit at a lower side, then comes the role of the goals, where exactly these mission statements are to be transformed into actuality. But still, we say that it's a futuristic lookout. It's a broader perspective of financial and non-financial issues addressed by the goals that a firm sets. So here we say they are also generalized in terms of achieving. They are broader as they do not pinpoint towards a particular aspect. So if you consider, for example, if the company wants to gain profits, so it would just state that maybe in future the company would like to achieve more profit as compared to the previous year. Here, how much profit, it's not quantified here. It only states that it wants to achieve more profit, or it wants to achieve more market share. How much market share, what would be the strategies are not included in these goals. So here again, maybe these goals are a tool to channelize the mission statements ahead, that is further. So to elaborate the mission statements, or to be a bit precise, we have the formation of goals for the organization. And against this, if you see the objectives, they are the ends that state how goals are to be achieved. So we say that objectives are more precise towards gaining goals, and goals are more precise towards achieving the mission of the organization, which ultimately is transforming towards the vision statement of the organization. This is what is the interconnectedness of these terms. Goals are more concrete than mission statements, and objectives are more concrete and specific in contrast to generalized goal statements. Objectives leads the path to goals operational. So here, now when I say that maybe the company wants to move ahead with more profits, that is the goal. Objectives may be the transformational part. Maybe in the coming quarter, the company would be moving ahead with the more of 2% profitability as compared to the previous quarter. That may be the specifications of the goals towards action orientedness, or to be the goals more into an operational format. So when goals are moved ahead with the operational part, that is action orientedness, the actual implementation part, then we say they are the objectives which leads to the path ahead, to be more precise towards the goals. While goals may be qualitative. Objectives tends to be mainly quantitative in specification. They are measurable and comparable. So here I said that more profits are to be achieved, or the company wants to be a leader. All these are qualitative terms which are used in goal formulation. But as far as the objectives are considered, they are more precise, and that's why they need quantification, because they are to be measured and compared. Otherwise, if there are no benchmarks, it would be very difficult to quantify them. How much percent of profits? How much percent of market share? So here, when to be more precise, these goals are to be quantified through objectives. Goals are broadly defined statements, while objectives are more specifically aimed towards achieving the objectives or towards achieving the goals. Organizations, they do formulate the goals, which are the broader statements which shows the reflection of the vision of the organization. So here again say that goals are much more broader and qualitative in characteristic, while objectives are more of operational kind and they are measurable. They should be measurable, otherwise there is no relevance because one would not be able to understand whether they are moving on the correct path or correct position ahead. Now coming to the role of objectives. The objectives define the organization relationship with its environment. Now, if you consider what is the environment, maybe the environment consists of different factors which act upon the organization. We can say at a micro level, we may have the employees, the suppliers, the internal units of the organization, while the macro environment, we may see the other forces like a political scenario, the legal aspect, the government acting upon the organization. So here, organization commits itself to what it has to achieve for its employees, for the different stakeholders. Now, shareholders are there, those who invest in the organization. The company raises the capital through the shareholder investment. So here, the companies, they are answerable to these shareholders. So when the company takes into consideration the objective part, they have to think about these different stakeholders, maybe in terms of monetary wise or maybe non-monetary wise. That is, if they want to benefit the society by gaining the revenues. So here, the organizations have to assess the relationship with the environment, with the external factors, how it is, because any objective which the company sets, it is dependent upon one or the other factor of the environment. If you think of coming up with the new offering, new product in the market, it should be welcomed by the government. That means it should fit into the government norms. It should be able to satisfy the need of the customer. The pricing should be with reference to value offered. here they should fulfill all the norms also. So this is just one example to quote that if the company is thinking of introducing a new product, so it should think about the relationship with its environment. Now, nano car, okay, the objective was to present or offer a car of 1 lakh or below 1 lakh, affordable price. Okay, that was the objective which the company thought will benefit the customers. From the customer's perception, the company just undertook the technology, okay, use the technology to have a car which is affordable for the common people. But here it failed to undertake the consideration of the perception of the customers, and that's why it did not work. So here the company, while defining the objectives, did not take into consideration the customer perception or the customer attitude, which is one of the demographic environmental factor. So here, whenever the company takes into account the objectives, it has to correlate with the various environmental factors. Tomorrow, if there is the company is flourishing and suddenly there are certain objectives set by the company to gain market, to be a market leader, to improve the market share, and government puts a ban on that offering that product, there is no point. The company has to remold and think about some sustainable options. So whenever the company is thinking of objectives, it takes these environmental factors into consideration. Again, if you see the automobile sector, where the organizations are moving ahead with the electric bikes or electric cars, okay, this evolution, this objective was included in the organizations with reference to external environment. One is the government role, second is the sustainability for the social cause, maybe for conserving the other sources. So here, while taking these objectives, the company has to relate with the environment. Second is the objectives help an organization pursue its vision and mission. So by having a long-term position that an organization wishes to achieve and the short-term targets to be achieved, objectives help an organization in pursuing its vision and mission statements. We say that vision is a much broader single statement, and mission statements may be the reflections, maybe with reference to strategic business units. But when it comes to objectives, there are long-term objectives as well as the short-term objectives or targets which the company undertakes, which the company thinks of achieving. So here, while taking these objectives, the short-term, the long-term, the company has to map these with the mission statements. Down the line, they should follow the same path or the same destination here. That is what is expected. Now, if the mission statement is like by providing quality services, the company is going to get the customers satisfied, then maybe the objective would be to think about offering quality-based products, irrespective of price or irrespective of compromising on quality. The customer should be satisfied by providing or offering them the best quality products, which in the long term, which will serve the long term purpose of gaining the revenues or towards moving ahead towards the market share. That may be the long term objective which connects to the mission statements. Objectives provide the basis for strategic decision making also. By having more specific, direction oriented, strategic decision making gets the path and help to coordinate with the decision making. So here, if the customers are to be satisfied by providing quality based product, so here how one can think of having the emphasis on the quality strategically. Maybe one can think of having a offering with some unique proposition value where the competitors cannot beat the company. Even the customer should feel that the product has some unique offering, and then only the customer will purchase it. Now, this is a strategic move of the company. Suppose if the company wants even to take into consideration the profit motive, then the objectives would be to improve the profits, to gain more profits. So here, at the average quality, if the company is providing average product and it is welcomed by the customers are satisfied, then naturally here the company thinks of more promotional or aggressive penetration strategies in the market, which is a strategic decision making. This is based upon maybe the pricing attribute with reference to that particular offering. Objective provides the standard for performance appraisal also. That is, the objective stated the targets to be achieved in a given time period and the measures to be adopted to achieve them. Now, objectives laid down certain standards against which the company's organization as well as the individuals they perform. So here, whether the set objectives are met or not, suppose maybe you want to earn profits by more 2%. So whether after the next quarter end, whether you are going to conclude whether the objective set was achieved or not. So here, these objectives serve as a tool for performance appraisal. Suppose if they are not able to meet the objectives, then maybe they can think about what are the reasons of not meeting those objectives. What happened? Why there is a gap? Whether there are any external factors. That external factors may be the customers who might have not liked the offering. They might be the competitors who offer the products in the same category with the less price, or whether the dealers or the distributors are a problem. So here the company is able to easily analyze the gap why the company is not able to achieve the set standards. So in such way, even the objectives, they provide the standards for performance appraisal. Characteristics of objectives. Objectives should be understandable. As objectives play a very important role in strategic management and they are put to use in variety of ways. Now here, these objectives are set by the managers. So here, maybe many a times the functional managers have to understand what is expected of them. because ultimately it is at the operational level or the functional level who will take care of those objectives and who are one of the subsets of achieving those objectives. That's why it's the role of the managers that they should make aware the employees about the objectives set by the organization and the minute details about how they should be achieved. Now, objectives should also be concrete and specific. Suppose the company has the objective of increasing the profits by certain margin. In that case, they should be more specific while stating the percentage of the sales to be achieved. There should be some pool of data available. One cannot just blindly go ahead with the figures or while quantifying them. As ultimately the managers and the lower level employees, all of them together would be working towards achieving these objectives. They have to be more specific. Again, these objectives will motivate the managers, the employees also. They will be on toes and they will understand the proper direction or the path to be achieved. Objectives are related to time frame. When you need to achieve the objectives, there should be specified time period. Otherwise, there is no relevance of the objectives. They should be time bound. That within so and so time, the target should be completed or achieved. Many a times it happens so that the relevance of the objectives, the employees, they don't take the cognizance of it and they don't understand the urgency or the severity of the time frame. Hence, in the objectives, and it becomes very difficult to convince and tell the employees every time. So, better if the time frame is included in the objectives, it would be better for the employees to commit that much time and efforts towards achieving the particular objective. Now, the objectives should also be measurable and they should be controllable. Now, when we have certain plans, when we have certain objectives and everybody is moving towards that at the operational level, okay, if you have the review process, okay, maybe every after 10 days, fortnightly, the manager has a review of what are the things are happening at the operational level and whether they are able to meet the set standards and what are the gaps in case if they are not able to achieve certain set standards, then what are the gaps and why the gaps, there are gaps. So it helps to control the measures and control the things and try to mend the gaps by identifying the problems. The objectives at the same time should be challenging also. It should not happen that they are very easily achievable. Otherwise, there is no point. So here, there should be some challenge set. Now, this is the motivation for the employees as well as they are on their toes to perform their tasks effectively and efficiently. Even it helps for the performance appraisal of the employees here. The more challenging the task, the more is the responsibility on the particular employee towards achieving the objectives here. Now here the company may have more than one objectives. There may be varied objectives to be achieved, but all of them should correlate with each other. Suppose if the production department, now here one example is that production department always thinks of having uh, maybe if you take the pricing constraint, they would like to have the inventory, less inventory or manageable inventory here, and try to achieve the objectives that at the optimum time frame they are able to give the maximum output here. If you take the marketing department, they may think of improving the marketing. They want to penetrate or help penetrate more offerings in the market, increase the market share, and gain more profits or revenues here. When they would like to satisfy the customer, price is one of the important criteria here. Suppose if the company thinks of offering the products at an affordable price, but here again the production department should be able to cater to this objective of the marketing department, where pricing is one of the important factor or important strategy here. So here there should be correlation among the objectives. Objectives should be set within the constraint. There are many limitations or constraint. Sometimes there are internal problems, sometimes there are external problems. So which has to be taken into account or consideration when the objectives are set. Suppose if there is a problem with reference to technology, the company has limitations as far as the technology is considered, then it should not think of having those objectives where the technology plays a very vital role. Now, what are the issues in objective setting? Specificity is one thing. Okay, the objectives should be specific. They have to be specified, which is related to the organizational levels for which a set objective has been stated. That means they should be specified as to what exactly it means, specifically for the employees. From the employees' point of view, they should understand what exactly is to be done here. The multiplicity issue deals with different types of objectives with reference to organizational levels, like whether they are set from the point of view of higher level or level. Similarly, from the importance point of view, whether they are primary or secondary. And these objectives, they are pinpointing whether towards the survival, that is struggle in the market, or they are in the growth phase. When we take the functional attributes into consideration, whether it's from the marketing perspective or from the HR perspective. So here, the objectives may have many dimensions. That's why we say a multiplicity issue is there. But when the objectives are set, all these factors, all these attributes have to be taken into consideration. If the company is in the survival phase, that is, it is facing cutthroat competition from more competitors, and there is a do or die situation, then the things are different. And whether if the company is stabilized and moving towards the growth, then it's a different scenario. So here these things have to be taken into account. The number of objectives to be set, that is how much number should be there. The organization needs to set appropriate objectives There should not be too many, or there should not be very less objectives. Objectives are formulated for different time frames, that is periodicity, the long term or the short term or the medium term. It has to be specified. This is one of the issue. Now, what should be the time frame? It should be decided by the management here and should be conveyed to the employees. The communication gap should not exist here. Similarly, there should be the issue, there is the issue of verifiability. Each objective has to be tested on the basis of its verifiability. That is, it should be possible for a management to state whether an objective is being met or not. Once the task is done or completed, one should be able to understand or verify whether the preset objectives were established or not, were accomplished or not. So here again, the performance of that particular task directed towards goal has to be taken into account, has to be taken into consideration. And the next is the reality part. Objectives are official as well as the operative. When we take the official part, maybe the corporate, at the corporate level, the company thinks of what all it wants to do ahead in future and transform them into the objectives. While at the operational level, the objective seeks to attain the reality basically. So here at the corporate level, the company thinks of having the new production or new introduction of new product here. Then at the operative level, it seeks to go for market search or data survey as to what is the gap, what are the requirement of the customers, and how the company is going to offer a new product with reference to R&D, what is the investment, what is the budget, and move ahead with the operational tasks here. The next is the quality. Now, objectives may be good as well as bad. They provide specific direction and a tangible basis for performance evaluation. So here, whenever the company thinks of setting the objectives, the other 5 factors, okay, based upon these other 5 factors, it will define the quality of these objectives. Now, what are the objectives that are set? Okay. Objectives are of strategic importance to an organization because somewhere they are with reference to strategic move which a company takes or with the strategic move which the company makes here. If we take the profit point, then maybe the return on investment or the return on shareholders capital, net profits as a percentage of sales. In such type of criteria, these profits are reflected in the objectives. Similarly, if we take the marketing, then the reflection should be in terms of increase in the sales volume, market development for the existing products, new product development, reduction in marketing cost, or improving customer service. Such type of statement should be mentioned in the objectives, where the company takes the objective into consideration. When one thinks about the growth factor, the output, the sales turnover, or the growth may be specified in terms of investments to be made with reference to that particular department or functional aspect. Growth may be specified in terms of output or the sales turnover also. So it depends upon the company how it reflects when the growth is considered, how it reflects in the objectives. Similarly, when employees is considered, it's the industrial relations and welfare and development of the employees. Social responsibility. Now, social responsibility refers to the community service, the rural development, the auxiliary industry development, or the family welfare part. So, how the company thinks of achieving the social responsibility by specifying them in the objective statements. So, here, even this has to be quantified. Maybe if the company thinks of having social responsibility with reference to the products, or maybe with reference to taking care of the customers. So exactly how the company is planning to adhere to this social responsibility has to be specified. So if the company thinks of having of good packaging it means based upon the sustainability, because today the environmental concerns are on rise, and if the company wants to portray this aspect of social responsibility, it would like to include in the objectives. Then how exactly these objectives would be met by the company has to be specified. Coming to the next part, how are objectives formulated? Basically, there are four factors to be considered as far as the objective setting is considered. That is the forces in the environment. Now, each group of shareholders may think of changing their role or their expectations. So here the company has to think about the capabilities, how it can maintain the relationship with the different stakeholders, whether the company has that much potential or the capabilities to map with the environmental attributes. The realities of enterprise resources and internal power relationships. The objectives are also dependent on the capabilities of the organization or competency of the organization with reference to available resources. Now, when we say the company is heading for a new product development, whether they have that much finance, and how the company thinks of raising the finance, whether it's going to convince the shareholders or whether it's going to raise through the IPOs. So it depends upon the company how uh, they are moving ahead with this aspect. The value system of the top management. Now, the value system of the top executives, it always had an impact on the corporate philosophy that organization has to adopt with reference to strategic management in generality, in totality. If the company gives more emphasis to customer satisfaction, ultimately moving down a step ahead from the strategic business unit manager to a simple supervisor at the unit level of department, everybody understands that customer satisfaction is the ultimate aim or the objective set, and they will strive towards achieving that. Suppose if profit maximization is the objective, so from top to bottom, everybody will be driven by the profit attribute. They will only think of, uh, so here when there is a trade-off between quality and profits, they will give more weightage to profit in this case. Now, awareness by management, awareness of the objectives of the past is the basis for the future. Now, the managers must be aware about what were the past objectives, how they impacted the future, the present, the binding together of different levels of the hierarchy of strategic intent is facilitated by the technique of balanced scorecard also here, moving ahead. So the balanced scorecard approach to the objective setting is one of the other aspect. Now, the performance management system called balanced scorecard, it was developed by Robert Kaplan and David Norton of uh, Harvard Business Review. Now, they emphasized on measuring the performance, the short-term financial objectives, and seeks to improve organizational performance by focusing the attention to measure the operational part. So here, when the company's performance have to be evaluated, it takes the financial aspect as well as the non-financial aspect into account. So this approach advocates a top-down approach to performance management, starting with the strategic intent. What exactly is the strategic move or strategic intention of the organization? So it is carried down from top management to the at the operational level. Exactly what is to be done, what are the steps to move ahead, steps to be achieved. Now, this balanced scorecard approach includes four perspectives, or you can say four dimensions, with the help of which the company thinks of assessing the performance or measure the performance in totality of the organization. If we consider the financial aspect or the financial perspective, financial measures due to strategic intent of the organization. Now, how one can think of measuring the financial impact of the organization or the financial perspective? What are the indicators? So, return on investment, revenues, the earnings, the profits, the cash flow. Okay, all this will pinpoint towards the financial performance of the organization. When we consider the customer's perspective, which measures the ability of the organization to provide quality goods and services to customers, the effective delivery of customers. So here, from the customer's point of view, how the company is performing or has performed, that is what the company thinks of measuring here. So this customer perspective approach. Now here the company may take the feedback directly from the customers. Because of digitization today, the company is in direct touch with the customers. They can have the customer care performance also, whether the grievances are solved on time or whether actually there are no grievances raised by the customers. The company is able to trace the customer satisfaction, or a survey could help in this scenario, in this case. When we take the third aspect, that is the internal business perspectives. The internal business processes are the mechanisms through which performance expectations are achieved. The internal businesses perspectives provides data regarding the internal business results as against the measures that have led the financial success and satisfaction of customers. Now here the organization must think of identifying the business processes to meet the organization objectives and customer expectations, which have to excel. If you take, for example, productivity indices or the quality measures or the efficiency, here, these are some of the examples of the internal business perspectives, which are linked with the processes basically. how the business has performed when the internal business connectivities are considered. The learning and the growth perspective. Now, this perspective focuses on the ability of the organization to manage its businesses and adapt to change. That means if there are something new, like here you can take the example of the pandemic, where many of the companies had to remold the strategies. Many of them they included the digital platform. Okay, where the traditional there were the restraints for the traditional model of business with reference to the intermediary, like through dealers or distributors. There were problems to reach to the end customers. Many of the companies they thought of introducing the digital mode, maybe through their own web device, developing their own websites or their own apps for the customers. So here, this is something with reference to innovative ideas or learning and growth perspective for the organization. Now, how the company handles the challenges to meet the customer expectations and the requirements of the market. It is up to the company what all new innovative ideas it undertakes. How the company trains the employees, develops their skill sets. Now, if you take an example of the IT companies, many of the employees were working from remote. Okay, so here communication was one of the challenge for the companies coming together, where in day-to-day office routine, the project manager just comes in and has a meeting. But here, through the online platform where they are not able to meet physically, they had to cope up and think of virtual options where they could come together and uh, through gaining new skill sets, through gaining new capabilities and matching the competencies, they had to move ahead. The moral, knowledge, employee turnover, usage of the best practices, share of revenues from new products, and employee suggestions are all the examples of this perspective. So Kaplan and Norton use the techniques of strategic maps that provide a visual representation of organization strategies. The four perspectives were connected to each other in a cause and effect manner, where all the relationship of this with reference to strategic objectives and intent could be easily understood or mapped. So the with reference to these four perspectives, it again helps in setting up the organizational objectives. So here, if we take the financial perspective, how the company is performing from the shareholders' point of perspective, because ultimately the shareholders, those who have invested, they would be more interested in gaining the revenues, gaining the amount back to them. If we consider from the customer's point of view, how the customer perceives, that is whether they are satisfied, whether they are dissatisfied, it's very much of importance. When we take the internal business perspective, then how the internal processes of the organizational units are linked for the betterment of the performance of that unit is of prime importance. And in learning and growth perspective, how the company is thinking of adapting new and sustainable learning and innovative environment in the organization is of prime importance or is a major concern here. Now, when the company thinks of moving or inculcating some innovative ideas or innovations, maybe if the company thinks of introducing the ERP packages, which will be more efficient or effective in terms of smooth functioning of day-to-day routine activities. Yeah, first and foremost thing is the people should be made aware about it, because ultimately, even though we have the software packages, it is the customers or the people, those who will use it. So how the company thinks of training the employees, giving training to the employees, or making them comfortable with reference to introduction of this new technology or new system into day-to-day routine operational activities will play a vital role. So when one thinks of having a performance measurement system like a balance scorecard, it also helps to set objectives from these four perspectives. It helps the management to uh, have the individual perspectives into account. Now, when I say financial perspective, it has more aspects when we go deeper inside just the financial perspective. It's just a single word financial, but it includes lot many things. It adds to many perspectives where the management takes into consideration all of these aspects and thinks of setting the objectives. Now, any doubts here? Okay, today we will stop here. We will continue in the next session.